I wasn't looking for her. Not really. It was one of those late summer evenings where the air feels like it's holding its breath, quiet, golden, on the edge of something. I was sitting outside a coffee shop on 9th and Willow, the sun dipping low behind the trees, and then, there she was. Like a song I'd forgotten I knew. Her name was Emily Carson. She had this way of moving, like she was always about to laugh at something, even when she wasn't smiling. Auburn hair, tied up loose like she hadn't decided whether to let it fall or not. A camera hanging from her neck, denim jacket, eyes that looked like they saw more than they should. She walked past me once. Then again. And the third time, I caught her looking. "What?" she said, eyebrows raised, pretending to be annoyed. "You circled me like a hawk," I replied. "I figured either you're planning to rob me or you want to say hi." That made her laugh. God, I still remember the way it sounded. Like wind chimes. We talked for hours. About nothing and everything. She told me she was a documentary filmmaker, working on a series about overlooked American towns. I told her I was a high school English teacher who hated grading essays but loved poetry. That night, we closed the place down and stood under the string lights outside like we'd known each other forever. She smelled like jasmine and rain. I drove home buzzing. Not just the kind of buzz you get after meeting someone beautiful, but the kind that rattles your bones, like your life just shifted and you didn't even notice until it was too late. The first few weeks with Emily were like living in a dream I didn't want to wake up from. We drove with the windows down, Springsteen on full blast, her feet on the dashboard, laughing at nothing. We kissed in parking lots and made pancakes at midnight. She'd sneak photos of me when I wasn't looking. I'd catch her in the act and chase her around the room while she shrieked with laughter. She had this theory, that love was about collecting little moments, like fireflies. That if you caught enough of them, you could light your whole life. I started seeing the world through her eyes. She noticed things I never had, the way shadows moved across the sidewalk, or how strangers carried their sadness in the way they stood. "Everything tells a story," she said. "You just have to listen." I listened to her more than anyone I'd ever met. We weren't perfect, not by a long shot. She'd disappear for hours without explaining why. She'd get quiet, distant, like she was somewhere far away. But then she'd come back with some wild story or a photo of a train station in the middle of nowhere, and I'd forget to be mad. Because she made the world feel big again, like it wasn't just bills and commutes and waiting for the weekend. She told me she loved me in a gas station parking lot. It was 2 a.m., and we were on our way back from a road trip to Vermont. I was pumping gas, and she leaned out the window, hair wild, eyes sleepy, and said, "Hey. I love you, you know that?" I froze. Not because I didn't feel it, I did. I just hadn't said it out loud yet. So I walked to her side, opened the door, pulled her out of the car, and kissed her in front of the pump like it was the most important thing I'd ever done. "I love you too," I said. "I've loved you since you made fun of my coffee order." She smiled, that slow, satisfied smile she had when she got her way. "Good," she said. "Now you're stuck with me." Looking back now, those were the golden days. Before everything started to crack. Before I realized that sometimes, even love as bright as ours, casts a shadow. But in those moments, the road trips, the quiet mornings, the shared laughter, we were infinite. And I would have followed her anywhere. Something changed in October. It started small, the kind of things you brush off when you're in love. Emily would sleep longer. She'd wince when the light was too bright. One morning, I found her sitting on the floor of our kitchen, staring into space, a cup of coffee untouched in her hands. "You okay?" I asked, crouching beside her. She blinked like she'd just returned from somewhere far away. "Yeah," she whispered. "Just tired." But it wasn't the kind of tired you fix with a nap. It was deeper. Like her soul was carrying something she wasn't ready to show me. She stopped going on trips. Her camera, once practically glued to her side, stayed on the shelf. The fire in her, that wild curiosity, dimmed. We'd sit on the couch watching old black and white movies, and even when her head was resting on my shoulder, I could feel her drifting. One night, I found her outside, sitting on the porch steps in the rain, soaked through and shivering. "Emily." I ran to her. "What the hell are you doing out here?" She looked up at me slowly, almost like she didn't recognize me. Then she smiled. Weakly. "It felt real," she murmured. "The rain. It's real. Everything else feels foggy." I wrapped her in a blanket and carried her inside. But my hands were trembling. I didn't want to admit it then, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The doctors didn't know what to call it. She went through a blur of appointments, scans, questions. I sat in too many cold waiting rooms while she stared at the floor, always silent. They ruled things out, not in. "Maybe neurological," one said. "Could be degenerative," said another. Every answer felt like a door closing. Her memory started slipping. She forgot my birthday. Then she forgot her mother's name. Then, one afternoon, while we were driving, she turned to me and asked, "Where are we going?" I hadn't said anything yet. She was supposed to be the one who always knew where we were headed. One night, she tried to leave. I woke up to find her packing a bag, her hands shaking. "Emily," I said softly. "What are you doing?" She didn't look at me. "I need to go," she whispered. "Before I'm not me anymore." I reached for her hand. "You are you. You're still here." She looked up at me then, and for a moment, I saw it in her eyes. The fear. The desperation. And the unbearable weight of not knowing what was happening to her. "I don't want you to watch me disappear," she said. "You don't get to decide that," I told her, trying to hold back tears. "You don't get to walk out because you're scared." "I'm scared too. But I'm not leaving." She didn't say anything after that. Just crawled back into bed, curled into a ball, and cried until she fell asleep. I kept a journal during those days. I didn't know why. Maybe because I was afraid that someday, I'd forget too. That the only way I could hold on to her was by writing her down. She was slipping through my fingers, and I had no idea how to hold on tighter without breaking us both. The woman I loved, the wild, brilliant, fearless woman who once told me love was about collecting fireflies, was fading like the last light of a dying day. And the worst part? There was no name for what was happening. No villain to fight. No clock to race against. Just the silence between us growing longer, and the feeling that I was already beginning to grieve someone who was still right in front of me. Until the night she disappeared. It was snowing. Just barely. I came home from work, and the door was unlocked. Her coat was gone. Her phone was still on the table. No note. No goodbye. Nothing. She was just gone. And I didn't know if she left because she couldn't face what was happening to her. Or because something darker had pulled her away. They say when someone disappears, the world keeps moving. But for me, everything stopped the moment Emily vanished. At first, I told myself she just needed space. That she'd come back like she always did, maybe with a new photo series, a new story, some distant town she wandered through to clear her head. But the hours dragged into days. Then into a week. And still, nothing. No calls. No texts. No updates from her bank. No use of her credit card. Her email went untouched. Her social media frozen. It was like the world had swallowed her whole, and left no trace. I went to the police. Filed a missing persons report. Gave them photos. Told them about her recent memory problems, the confusion, the mood swings. The officer nodded along like he'd heard it all before. "She probably left voluntarily," he said. "Sometimes people just need to go." "She didn't just go," I said through clenched teeth. "She's sick. She needs help." They opened a case. But there was no urgency in their eyes. No sense that this was life or death. She was an adult. She had no history of violence or crime. No reason, in their eyes, to treat it as anything more than a woman walking away from her life. But I knew better. She didn't just walk away. Something pulled her away. I stopped sleeping. Stopped eating. Work gave me time off, but I didn't know what to do with it. Every corner of our apartment echoed with her absence. Her books still lined the shelves. Her camera still sat on the table. Her sweater still hung on the back of the chair. I left everything exactly where it was. As if keeping things untouched might summon her back. I began to haunt the places she loved, the bookstore on 3rd Street, the quiet hiking trail just outside of town, the little diner with the jukebox we used to dance to. I kept thinking, maybe she'll be there. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough. But all I ever found was emptiness. I started talking to her. Out loud. At night, I'd lie in bed and whisper to the ceiling, to the dark. Emily, where are you? Why didn't you let me help you? Are you afraid? Are you cold? And then finally, the truth. I don't know who I am without you. Because that's what it felt like my identity was unraveling thread by thread. I couldn't laugh. Couldn't feel. Couldn't see color in the world anymore. People would talk to me and I'd just nod, pretending to be human, but inside, I was gone. I had become a ghost of the man I used to be. And yet, something inside me refused to let go. I started digging. I went through her journals, notebooks, hard drives. Read every half-finished script she ever wrote. Watched hours of old footage from her documentaries, searching her face for clues, a look, a sentence, a flicker of something. I found a note scribbled in the margins of a travel guide to Colorado. Blue Ridge. The woman in the greenhouse. Ask about the clinic. It meant nothing to me at first. But it was the first real lead I'd had in weeks. I packed a bag and left before sunrise. Driving through those cold winter roads, I looked in the rearview mirror and barely recognized myself. I hadn't shaved in days. My eyes were sunken, my voice hoarse from disuse. I was still wearing the scarf Emily gave me last Christmas, the one with the little coffee stains she always said made it look authentic. I was a wreck. But I had a direction. And sometimes, that's all grief needs, a reason to move. I didn't know what I'd find in Blue Ridge. Or what the woman in the greenhouse had to do with Emily's disappearance. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to stop. Not until I found her. Not until I brought her home. Even if it meant losing what was left of myself to do it. Blue Ridge was a ghost town wrapped in winter fog. It looked like the kind of place people came to forget, a few weather-worn shops, a diner that hadn't changed its menu in 20 years, and winding roads that led nowhere fast. I drove through slowly, scanning for anything familiar. Then I saw it. A faded greenhouse on the edge of town, half hidden behind a row of pine trees. It looked abandoned, shutters crooked, paint peeling, porch steps rotting. But something in my gut told me this was it. This was where the trail picked up. I knocked. Once. Twice. No answer. I started to walk away, but then the door creaked open. A woman stood there. Late 50s, maybe older. Sharp eyes. Long gray hair tied in a braid. She didn't speak, just looked at me, like she already knew why I was there. I'm looking for someone, I said. Her name is Emily Carson. Silence. Then. You're too late, she said quietly. My heart dropped. Before I could speak, she turned and walked inside. I followed. The house smelled like herbs and old wood. On the walls were photos, hundreds of them. Some were landscapes. Others were of people. All of them looked off. Like they were trying to capture something that didn't want to be seen. She poured tea. Saturday. Finally spoke. She came here about 6 weeks ago, the woman said. Said she was losing time. Said she wasn't sure what was real anymore. Was she sick? I asked. Did she talk about memory loss? Hallucinations? She talked about noise. The woman's eyes darkened. Said she could hear things no one else could. Voices. Static. Like a radio signal in her head. Said it was calling her. That didn't make sense. None of it did. I reached into my bag and pulled out Emily's journal. Showed her the page with the scribbled note. You were in here. She wanted to ask you about a clinic. The woman's face tightened. She stood slowly, walked to a dusty drawer, and pulled out a crumpled flyer. Handed it to me. At the top, in faded ink. The Halcyon Institute. Healing for the Unseen Mind. It was an old mental health center, private, off-grid, closed down years ago. But the woman told me something else. It reopened quietly. Under new funding. Different mission. Not for healing, for study. My skin prickled. Emily went there, she said. They told her they could help her understand what was happening. She believed them. Where is it? I asked. She hesitated. Then handed me a map. Follow the logging road past Gray Lake. You'll see a metal gate. If you find it. She paused. Be careful. That place doesn't let go of people easily. It took me hours to find it. Snow fell heavy as I drove. My tires slid more than once. I nearly turned back. But then I saw it, the gate. Rusted. Closed. Cameras on poles, watching silently. No signs. No lights. I climbed the fence. Found the building tucked behind trees, an old brick compound with dark windows and steel doors. I slipped inside through a broken maintenance hatch. What I found chilled me. Hallways lit with flickering fluorescents. Rooms with padded walls. Surveillance monitors showing footage of patients pacing, rocking, whispering to themselves. Files with names, diagnoses, notes written in cold, clinical language. And then I found her. Not in a room. In a chair. Eyes closed. Electrodes on her temples. A low hum filled the room, some kind of machine pulsing with light. Emily. I rushed forward, ripping the wires from her skin. She flinched. Eyes fluttered open. At first, nothing. Then she gasped. Like surfacing from deep water. Matthew, she whispered. She looked thinner. Pale. But she was alive. I'm here, I said. I'm getting you out. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. I pulled her to her feet. She stumbled. I caught her. We ran. A man in a white coat tried to stop us. I shoved him aside. Down stairwells. Through the snow. Over the gate. We didn't stop running until we reached the car. I drove like hell, not daring to look back. We didn't talk for a long time. Emily sat beside me, staring out the window. Her hands trembled. Her lips were cracked. But there was something in her eyes, recognition. Relief. Like the fog was beginning to lift. They said they could fix me, she whispered. But they weren't trying to fix anything. They just wanted to know how I worked. They can't hurt you anymore, I said. I've got you. She turned to me then. And for the first time in weeks. She smiled. After we escaped the Halcyon Institute, I thought we'd made it out. That the worst was behind us. But I was wrong. Freedom wasn't a finish line. It was a battleground. Emily couldn't remember what they'd done to her. Fragments, maybe, cold metal, wires, voices asking the same questions over and over. When did the noise begin? What do you see when you close your eyes? Who else hears it? She had bruises on her arms. A small scar behind her ear she didn't recognize. I wanted to burn the place down. But I didn't even know who they were. The clinic had no public records. No website. No trace of its funding. It wasn't just a hospital. It was a lab. A prison. An experiment. And Emily had been their subject. The day after we got back, she asked me, "Are you still in love with me?" I was washing dishes. I turned, drying my hands. "Of course I am," I said. She didn't meet my eyes. "You don't look at me the same." I walked to her, knelt down in front of her chair. "You've been through hell," I said. "But you're still you." She shook her head. "No, I'm not." And maybe, she wasn't. But neither was I. That man who made her pancakes at midnight, who danced with her in gas stations, who thought love was enough to protect someone, he was gone. I had become someone else. Not out of choice. But out of necessity. I started collecting evidence. I traced old staff records, tax filings, medical license numbers. I created fake identities. Made burner accounts. Found whistleblower forums. Deep web directories. I even contacted a reporter who specialized in medical abuse cases. I spent weeks connecting dots no one wanted connected. And slowly, the picture came into view. The Halcyon Institute was funded by a private biotech company. Their mission? Researching abnormal cognitive patterns in individuals with rare neurological symptoms. But not to heal them, to study them. Control them. Use them. Emily wasn't the first. And she wouldn't be the last. The deeper I dug, the more I realized, we were still in danger. Emily started having nightmares. Sometimes she'd wake up screaming. Other nights she'd stand at the window, silent for hours, eyes scanning the dark trees like something was coming. And maybe it was. Because one night, someone broke into our apartment. We came home to find the door unlocked. Everything untouched, except her journal, which was gone. Just that. Nothing else. It was a message. "We're watching you." I changed. Stopped going outside during daylight. Moved us to a rental under a fake name. Covered the windows. Learned how to shoot. I wasn't a teacher anymore. I wasn't a boyfriend. I was a protector. A strategist. A shadow. Emily tried to hold on to the past. Tried to bake cookies one afternoon like she used to. She burned them. Then she cried for an hour in the bathroom. "I don't know who I am anymore," she said through the door. "I know who you are," I said quietly. "You're the woman I love. That's enough." But love wasn't enough. Not anymore. We decided to go public. Leaked everything, files, photos, maps, audio. The reporter I'd contacted published a full exposé. It went viral. There were congressional calls for investigations. Protests. But the company denied everything. Called it a hoax. Said Emily had a history of mental illness. Said I was unstable. They tried to erase her again. But we didn't back down. We kept fighting. People think becoming a hero is about courage. But it's not. It's about loss. It's about how much of yourself you're willing to give up to protect someone else. And I gave up everything. My job. My name. My future. I became someone else so she could survive. And I'd do it again. Because she was still the firefly collector. Still the girl who saw the world in stories. Even if the world had tried to erase her. I remembered. And I made sure the world remembered too. It's been 18 months since we escaped. I'm writing this from a small cottage in northern Oregon, just beyond the trees, where the fog rolls in like a blanket and no one asks questions. It's quiet here. The kind of quiet Emily says doesn't hurt her head. Some days are better than others. Some days she paints. Walks barefoot through the grass. Laughs when the wind flips her hair into her mouth. Those are the days when I see her, really see her, like a ghost turning solid again. The girl who saw magic in cracks and poetry in silence. But other days. She disappears. Not physically. Not anymore. But inwardly, like she's sinking behind glass. Her eyes glaze. Her hands tremble. She forgets where she is, or who she's talking to. And I see it happen in real time, powerless to stop it. I hold her hand and wait. Sometimes for minutes. Sometimes for hours. When she comes back, she always says the same thing. I'm sorry. And I always say, don't be. I'm right here. Because that's what love is now. It's not red wine and long drives and dancing under parking lot lights. It's waiting beside her in the dark. It's being a lighthouse for someone who can't always find their way home. We don't talk about Halcyon anymore. We don't need to. We carry it in us, not just the trauma, but the transformation. It made us different. Not weaker. Not broken. Just changed. We're not who we were. But we are still we. I used to think love meant saving someone. Now I think it means staying. Staying even when they change. Even when the story doesn't go the way you wanted. Even when it hurts. Because love and pain are not opposites. They are two names for the same thing. To love someone, truly, is to open yourself to losing them. To hurting with them. For them. Sometimes because of them. But it's worth it. God, it's worth it. There's a field near our house. Wildflowers bloom in the spring. Emily takes pictures again, not like before, not for documentaries or awards. Just quiet photos. Honest ones. She told me yesterday, I think the world's still beautiful. Even if I can't always hold on to it. I smiled. That's okay. I'll hold on to it for you. She laughed. And for one perfect second, the sun hit her just right, and I saw her, every version of her, all at once. The fire. The fading. The fight. The fragile. And the forever. She still hears the noise sometimes. But now, she hears me, too. And when she gets lost, she always finds her way back. This is how our story ends. Not with a wedding. Not with a funeral. But with a promise. That even when the world turns upside down. Even when memory fades and names slip and time feels like it's working against us. I will love her still. Because love is not just the spark. It's the burn that follows. And I have learned. They are one and the same. Fade to black.